South Africa. From the majestic lions of the Kruger National Park to the tourist mecca that is Table Mountain, visitors often forget its hidden side. Like Angie's G-spot, for example. And for overlanding, seeking remote and hard-to-access places, I do not put South Africa high on any list when compared to most other African countries. It's comparatively well developed, but for adventure travellers, it surely is one of the best. I lived in South Africa for 42 years, and during that time there were few parts of the country that I didn't visit. In a 3-part series, I will now take you to some of those places with unseen footage and untold stories. I'm Andrew St Pierre White. Join me as I share my passion for building 4-wheel drive trucks and travelling to the remotest parts of the world. There are a few things that I enjoy more than being out on the open road. Fantastic. Particularly if you're in a vehicle that you enjoy driving
It's a perfect day for the road. Blue sky will take us home. We'll take it easy, we'll take it slow. It's a good day for the road. And time goes so fast. You're with the ones you love, but I won't worry today. Even if time flies away.
This here is nature's answer to modern technology. This is nature's iPod. It's a pod. I have a broken one here, and inside the seeds, these dark emony seeds, are used as eyes in sculpture done by the Sodwana people. So iPod. In fact, I'll now show you podcast. In my search for South Africa's loneliest road, I've taken a road north of Cape Town for 3 hours and now heading inland, eastward, northeastwards to be precise. I'm climbing up the Van Rhyns Pass, a long and lonely tar pass, to what I believe will be one of South Africa's most remote areas. On the R27. Calvinia is that way, west-southwest. North of me, about 50 kilometers, is Bruntvlei. If you look at the map of South Africa, this area of the Northern Cape, it's the southern end of the Northern Cape, is very, very remote. And this particular road runs through bare Karoo. It's been a bit of a disappointment really, because while the scenery is fantastic and some of the passes have been amazing, quite a bit of traffic. I expected a long and lonely road. Maybe I won't find one. Still, my quest continues. As a rule, wild camping in South Africa is unsafe. Not from animals so much as from people, and I would not advise it. The Northern Cape is one possible exception, and I have gone to great pains to find a place well away from the road, in a spot where it's very unlikely that I will be seen. There are few places in South Africa where the geology changes over such a short distance and is so noticeable as here in the Northern Cape. Bruntvlei that way, about 60 kilometers south, Kenhardt that way, about 50 kilometers north. Bruntvlei is unmistakable Karoo. Scrubland, it's unmistakable. But soon after, as you travel north, you start seeing the grass starts changing its color, the sand starts changing, it starts becoming, it looks like Kalahari. But now here, in between, I find this. That is unmistakably Namibia savanna. The rocks, even the plants. It's extraordinary, because in front of us is the Kalahari. I'm walking now in the campsite of the Augrabies Falls National Park. There's a fantastic wind blowing. I say fantastic because when I arrived here 2 hours ago it was 44 degrees. Unbelievably hot, incredibly unpleasant. Said a short prayer for rain and look at it. It's dropped about 8 to 10 degrees since I arrived, so I'm able to walk now and have a look at the falls. Oh, there's some water there. Located on the Orange River, the Augrabies Falls is South Africa's largest waterfall. Its canyon is 240 meters at its deepest, with the waterfall averaging 60 meters. At times of flood, like now, it easily exceeds this. The best times to visit are February and March. Standing here looking over the waterfall, I feel as if I'm on the edge of a large skyscraper looking down. I get this sense of vertigo, the movement of the rush of the energy underneath. It's actually quite freaky. 2 weeks ago, the water, can you believe it, would have been around my ankles. And in fact, there were people standing on that platform over there, which has now been destroyed. They were standing on it. That is probably 20 meters below where I am now standing. Now, if I look around me, I can see the water has started ripping up this as well. The other reason behind this trip, however, was to make a film for a client who builds caravans. And since I loathe caravans, you can imagine how much fun it was.
We have some of our own equipment. We have our own little CNC machine that does all the CNC routing of the furniture and the wall.
I find myself this morning in slightly unfamiliar surroundings. I'm in a very, very busy campsite. We arrived last night at Retracing in the southern end of the Kalahari Transfer and Frontier Park. And it's a packed campsite, even though it's out of school holidays. It's absolutely packed. So I was a bit disappointed when I arrived. But the reason why I'm here is to test some new caravans. Yes, that's another thing I'm doing that is not that familiar to me. I'm caravanning. Well, I am trying to be sincere. In 2012, I planned to drive from Cape Agulhas, the southern tip of Africa, to John O'Groats, the northernmost tip of the United Kingdom mainland, in aid of rhino conservation. I was going to do the trip with my good mate Paul Marsh, but at the last hour the backers pulled out, and we never did the trip. But we did film on day one. This is Cape Agulhas Lighthouse. I am standing less than 100 meters from the southernmost tip of Africa. So in fact now if I look this way, I have the entire continent of Africa spread out before me, and that's where I'm going. My plan is to drive from this point to the northernmost tip of Great Britain. It's a place called John O'Groats. It'll take me 6 months. So I set my compass north and I go. Amazing. Amazing. After how many years? Actually going. Actually going. Did I recognize him? Hey! Where are you going?
Hey, Scotland.
Scotland?
Yeah.
Oh, really? And whereabouts in Scotland?
John O'Groats.
John O'Groats, eh? Now, sorry, I'm just going to the shops.
There's going to be another vehicle. But that was a really well-kitted vehicle.
Likely story, John O'Groats. Oh dear. Stupid person. Actually, he could be useful. He could make me my dinner. Ah, shit. Oh my God. This is going to be fun.
I think we're in for a good trip.
Very silly. Just to confirm, you are going to John O'Groats.
Do you know the way?
I haven't a clue. I was hoping you two would.
No, really, I'm useless. I can't read a map. I always have a navigator.
Sounds like we'll get on perfectly.
Good. We'll get lost and we'll find our way.
Between 2009 and 2013, I owned this little beauty, a Zimango motor glider. I made several cross-country and hundreds of soaring flights. I've held a lifelong passion for flying, and my goal is to do similar in Australia. At a place called Karoo. Karoo is a world-famous gliding area. Still probably an hour to go. I've had a good tailwind all day. Estimated that my speed would be 110 knots. I think my average speed has probably been closer to 115 to 116 knots. So just idled the propeller so you can hear me, and the weather ahead looks good. But I think the weather ahead is also going to be a little bit turbulent because there are clouds, and I'm feeling the effect of thermals. So I'll see you when I'm on the ground. Springbok Boerboer. Now that I live in England, I really have to take advantage of this. And this is so good. Not too fatty. We've travelled further east now and are in the beautiful clean Karoo. Early morning on the Breda River. This particular river is one of the major inland waterways of the Eastern Cape. Tidal, we're about 25 kilometres upstream. And not long ago, they tagged a 4.5 metre Zambezi shark that was actually further inland than where I'm standing now. Amazing light. The rain comes down. In November 2008, it's hard to believe, but this entire area was underwater. In fact, the balcony I'm sitting on now, the veranda, the stoep, was actually underwater by about 1 centimetre, so the house wasn't damaged, but this entire floodplain was underwater. Apparently this is one of only 3 working ponds in all of southern Africa. The other one is Kaimouth, not actually very far from here, and the other one at Sendlingsdrift from the Northern Cape into Namibia.
Andrew, I found Zuma's heart. Come look here. With a razor wire.
That's Steve Searle. He's here to lend a hand and to make jokes. This is the first time I've ever seen manpower instead of horsepower pulling a pond across the river.
Go on, Andrew, go help them.
No,
Add another quarter horsepower to this effort.
Quarter, you're being generous.
Yeah, you can put on that bridle you had on last night.
Shush, told you not to talk about that. Thank you. Okay. Have a good day.
Enjoy your trip.
Okay, bye-bye. 42 bucks. That's a good deal. In this part of the Western Cape, there are several spectacular mountain passes. This is the Trudeau Pass and links the town of Barrydale with the coast. The Khoisan people first discovered the route, Trudeau meaning the way of the woman. Not sure how that connects with a very twisty, winding and unforgiving pass. It's one of 13 passes in the Southern Cape, built by master road engineer Thomas Baines before the 20th century. It was built largely by convict labourers, opening in 1873. It was tarred in 1973.
You can see Pistorius was here, Oscar. Oscar's left his mark, and it's actually quite interesting. There are 4 holes here, the same as the toilet door. It's a trademark figure.
This is a marvelous example of marketing genius. This is Ronnie's shop. It was just Ronnie's shop, and people popped in and bought a Coke and some packet of chips. Ronnie's sex shop, and you can see it's been added afterwards. This is now a national treasure. Tour buses come here. People come from all over the country just because they've added that 3-letter word. It's crazy.
Ronnie here.
Started as a joke. It was two of Ronnie's friends that added the sex, and that's how the whole thing just took place.
So they just got and put sex in the Ronnie's sex shop. He must have had a reputation to...
No. When it started, no. It really was, everything was innocent. So it was two of his friends as a joke. They went and they added the sex on the wall. Stayed like that broken building for 7 years. That's where it got its name. You know, everywhere was articles regarding the so-called sex shop in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then 7 years went by. His friends came back, looked at him and said, "Hey man, I know you've been slow, but come on." So I said, well, there was nothing in the area. He said, well, open a bar. If it works, fine. If it doesn't work, open a bar on the farm. 16 years later, we're still here.
Sure. Amazing.
Watch on TV, you know, just sit like a lay back.
Yeah.
Just sit there and you start looking at the wall and you start reading. Yeah.
You start seeing a lot more than what's actually there.
Yeah. Everything is crazy.
Sorry,
I mean, you must have seen some really weird stuff going on. The bikers come here. And
Lots of, no, I've had from the Oppenheimers right to those who crawl out under the rocks. No, really, all of them.
yeah, I'd like a full brandy and coke now. I mean, what is the most popular thing you sell here, drink-wise? Brandy and coke. There we go.
And like most places where brandy and coke is popular, there are tyre marks on the tarmac. And so we say goodbye to the two Ronnies and head further east. Right, here we are on, what day is it?
Wednesday.
It's Wednesday at Leroux's B&B in Oudtshoorn. Very good, very comfortable, very nice, and very wet. Pouring the whole night. Pouring. And today we're supposed to be going to the farm today.
We had a bit of thunder this morning, didn't you?
Did you hear? Oh, I didn't hear it.
As you came out the shower.
I thought that was you coming out of the shower. Very funny. We're going to eat breakfast. Oh, what a very nice breakfast that is. Now it's off to the local Isuzu dealer, where I've organised to meet Wessel, a local farmer. And we're going to spend the morning on his farm. I'm not sure doing what. I suppose we'll see.
Andrew.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, pleased to meet you too. I'm with GM General Motors since I started farming, and that's about 33 years. Yeah. But I'm a moe farmer.
Okay.
I produce moe.
Right.
I'm not a goat farmer. Moe grows on goats,
Yes.
but I produce moe. I produce the hair.
Oh, so not a goat farmer. It's splitting hairs, isn't it? It should be a fun day if the rain just holds up, but I think it will. I just have it'll give us some gaps. We arrive as his farm workers ready themselves to go and rescue some lost goats threatened by the unusual cold weather. Then he leads us into the shed. But the first thing I see is not a goat, but a car. It's a Chevrolet. My guess, from the early 60s. It's a bit like the family grandfather clock, isn't it? Except it doesn't go tick-tock.
Been a long time that we don't run it, so the petrol went down and then you still had to pump it up. I got a...
What year is it now? Tell me just a little bit about it.
Yeah, this car was bought by my dad's brother in 58, 57 actually. It's a 57 model, and I've got it in 79. At that stage, this car got 30,000 miles on it. It's now 30, 40 years later, and I think it's got 60,000 miles on now. Genuine miles. Lock on here. You've got a lock on here that you can lock it when it is closed. Always need a car or need some petrol because you don't know if you will reach the next town. It's heavy on petrol.
Having yet to see a goat, I asked to be taken to see them. And what do I see? An Argentinian alpaca. An alpaca in Africa? An ostrich may be. I actually expected to see lots of ostriches today.
Argentinian alpaca, what do they call it?
Why have you got an alpaca here?
It helps chasing away the predators.
Oh, what predators? Jackal?
Like jackal and lynx.
Yeah?
And also people. People are also scared of them. Because they can spit on you.
Yeah.
And
they stare at you.
And if you tell them, okay, unlucky, the guys that work with the goats know that it doesn't harm, but for people that want to come and steal goats, they're afraid of it.
I'm nervous.
Yeah. A goat's lifetime is about 8 to 10 years.
Okay, enough about hair and teeth. What about the farm? So Wessel takes us out. His farm is big. It would take half a day just to drive around it. I'm in the eastern part of the Western Cape, on my way to Natal. My travelling companion is Steve Searle, well-known cameraman and joke teller. So many of these mountain passes built in the 19th century were in fact built by convict labour. And the fact that it's wet and cold is nice. That's just that's brilliant. To me, this is what four-wheel drive is actually all about. It's the fact that you can take a drive like this on a road like this and not worry, just be able to go. To me, it's the difference between owning a four-wheel drive and a two-wheel drive, actually. Is that I'm not worried about that the road's going to get really, really difficult and really, really sticky. Whereas I think if I was in a two-wheel drive, I might have this slight apprehension that it was going to get too bad and I might have to turn back. Partnering with Ronnie's sex shop is Angie's G-Spot. Unfortunately, Angie wasn't in, but I'm sure she would have said, please come again.
Even if time flies away.
For overlanders seeking remote and hard-to-access places, I do not regard South Africa as being high on the list when compared with other African countries. It's comparatively well developed. But for adventure travellers, it surely is one of the best. I lived in South Africa for 42 years, and during that time there were few parts of the country that I didn't visit. This is part 2 as I take you to see some of these places with unseen footage and untold stories. Early 2010, I went to Natal to retrace the very first four-wheel drive track that I ever drove in my own vehicle. That was back in 1983. This is Cape Vital. This is the first stop on our little adventure. What we're going to do is we're going to explore the marine sanctuaries in the area, which includes St Lucia, right up to Kosi Bay on the Mozambique border. This is the Indian Ocean. And as usual, it's like warm soup. One of the most rewarding parts of my job isn't the travel, it's this. Toys. This was my very first underwater camera housing. Later that same year, I was introduced to GoPro. I'm in the far eastern part of South Africa, in a province called KwaZulu-Natal, right up against the Mozambique border. I'm here retracing my steps. You see, in 1982 I bought my very first 4x4. It was a Range Rover. And it was here that I took my very first self-drive expedition. I was 22 years old. This little bit of the trip has significance for me. When I started doing this four-wheel drive thing, I got my first vehicle of my own in 1982. It was a Range Rover, 10-year-old model. I decided to come to Kosi Bay, and in fact, I recorded as my very first expedition in my own vehicle. And I am now returning 35 years later to relive that moment. When I first came here, I didn't have the luxury of a boat. I also didn't have the luxury of a guide to show us around Kosi Bay, and that's what we're going to do now. These were the very first pictures I took of it, which I guess led me to a career in taking pictures of 4x4s. And not unlike today, here I am, spending my weekend working on it, here laying some carpet and soundproofing. If I think about it, absolutely nothing has changed. I chose this part of Natal for my first expedition because I could reach it in less than 2 days and it was still remote and unspoilt. My task now is to find out if that is still the case 27 years later. Descending now after 11 hours non-stop driving. We're descending the final descent to the sea at Cape Vidal at the campsite here. Every now and again somebody develops something in the camping and four-wheel drive market that gets me very, very excited. And here's another one. And the reason why I'm excited is that every so often I buy a new four-wheel drive vehicle and spend lots of time equipping it. I've actually had 8. This particular piece of equipment is getting me thinking about doing another one. The essence of simplicity. Watch this. No, I don't actually. I'm finished. This is what surely must be the simplest tent in the world. Now the thing is, the whole idea behind this, it's for 2 people and 2 people only. Driving in the vehicle that is completely and utterly equipped. Now the way this works is, underneath the mattress, in this portion here, is where you put all your clothes and things inside here. And then once they're in packed properly, of course this will be flush and I'm going to go to sleep. Ta-da! Hey, how about that? It's not my car. I have absolutely no idea what they left for me here. Gas tank inside there. And a little stove with a little windbreak. The idea behind this is that it is a self-contained safari vehicle, fully equipped for 2 people. This piece in the back, actually 6 bolts, and out it comes, and what you're left with is an ordinary pickup. Put it in, and it's a safari vehicle. This is the prototype, and I'm testing it, and I've found a few niggles so far, but they're little. I think the concept is brilliant. African Outback Products has since gone out of business. This very promising idea never took off. So I'm now going to show you what we're doing here and where we're going to be going. Last night we spent at Cape Vidal. It's right here. We actually returned this morning to the town of St Lucia, and in the boat travelled about 8 kilometres up this river here. Later on today we actually have to head back to the main road because we're heading east. We're going to end up about here, Sodwana Bay. Sodwana is a very, very touristy area. I was there 5 or 6 years ago, didn't like it one bit, left, only because there were just too many people, and a lot of the people there were diving. There was also a lot of irresponsible four-wheel drivers mucking up the beach. I understand that they've sorted that out. We're going to be spending some time at Sodwana and then heading further east. Rocktail Bay is where we're going to be spending some time. Never been there, don't know anything about it. I understand it's stunning. This area here, we'll be ending our trip at Kosi Bay. This is significant for me. In 1982, I got my first four-wheel drive, and the first expedition I put together was to Kosi Bay. And I remember it with fond memories. And this is the first time since then that I've been back. But before we head off, I have two places I want to visit. I'd like to take a boat trip up the river, and I also want to see the crocodile enclosure. The boat leaves quite close from St Lucia town, goes up the river about 8 kilometers, doesn't go into the main body of the lake because that's actually far too far. But this is the river section that actually feeds the lagoon from the sea. And as you can see, a lot of wildlife.
Into forest. If you drive through.
This crocodile sanctuary is really beautiful. It's set right in the coastal forest, so the tree canopy is absolutely beautiful. They've done it nicely too. There's a cycad forest. There are areas where there are little crocodiles, so you can get very, very close to them in their little enclosures, a bit like a zoo, but the big guys are in settings that feel and look very natural. This is part of the vast Kosi Bay tidal lake system. We're going to look for the freshwater parts that are not unlike the Okavango Delta in Botswana, so I'm told. It's a half-hour boat ride. There's a very, very narrow channel we're trying to find that leads onto Lake 2. Proof that men do ask directions. As a last resort, of course. It is indeed like the Okavango. That is a huge surprise for me.
Pygmy geese. Look at this. Little pygmy geese. And that sound is a black crake. It's like a channel in the Okavango. Hey?
Good morning. It's finally nice to see you. It's been a long time coming, and now I get to meet you. In the peace plantation, always on my mind. And all the lights are turned off, the stars are on outside.
Coming after us.
These are traditional fish catchers, grass netting erected in a maze so that fish can find their way in but not out. Nets like these line the shores of the Kosi lakes and feed hundreds of families living in the area. This is Catalina Bay, named after a wreck, which is a couple of kilometers that way. But is it a wreck of a ship or a wreck of an aircraft? See, Catalina flying boats, they're large, twin-engined, like tugboats with wings. And I am suggesting that it's named after these flying boats that used to operate from the waters of Lake St Lucia. And not only that these wooden structures were built to berth them. Now, I've got a theory. How do I find out if this was actually made for the flying boats? I figure if an aircraft is going to sit in here, they're going to want to tie it up to stop it yawing like that. So they have to tie it at the back and the front. But how do they do that with an airplane with such long wings? So if the distance between that pontoon and that pontoon is not too much wider and certainly not narrower than the wingspan of a Catalina flying boat, then my theory holds up. Okay, that's 28. As it turns out, I was both right and wrong. Completely wrong about the Catalina and these structures. The span being 31 meters and the length being 19 meters bear no resemblance to the structure. But I wasn't wrong about Catalina Bay being named after the Catalina flying boats that once operated on St Lucia. There were 2 known fatal crashes on the lake, one of them at Catalina Bay. This is Sodwana campsite. It's the kind of campsite that makes me want to give up camping. We arrived late at night. The officials at the gate were officious, unfriendly, rude, but let's put that aside. The campsite itself, there's nothing wrong with it. It's very, very big. It's ablutions are reasonably good, but the trouble is with it, even on a day like today, in the middle of the week, it's reasonably busy. But before you've woken up in the morning, tractors are whizzing by, people are walking by. It's a very, very commercial environment. So Sodwana is the kind of place that I remember it to be when I first came here. I stayed one night and I got the hell out of here. And that's exactly what I'm doing today. That is after, of course, I've had a little look around.
Just putting it in four-wheel drive.
But this is Sodwana how I remember it. It's not a beach at all. It's a car park. And in the weekends, it's a very big car park. But let's go and have a walk around anyway. Check it out. When I first came here, would have been about 1985. I was disgusted by the place. There were literally 100 vehicles on this beach. And this lagoon over here was flowing out to the sea. There was a Hilux with a man in the front seat, driving seat, holding a bottle of cane spirits, and not more than 2 meters from his wheels was a little girl with a bucket and spade. I was horrified and I left. But today it's actually quite nice. asked one of the local ski boat operators, what's the deal here with all of the boats and cars?
This beach itself is a working beach, classified as a working beach. It's an operator's beach. So there's 100 vehicles allowed with boats on the beach here as such in this particular area. On the North Beach itself, they also allowed 100 recreational vehicles. Those are the average family goers who come down for their families and have a picnic on the beach.
There has to be a reason why Sodwana is right here. Is it the reef?
A lot of it is because of the diverse reef ecology that we got down here. With a diverse fish population and stuff. I mean, we've got over 1,000 species of fish. It's always clean water here. No real rivers close by. Warm, clean water. We see a lot of the whales come past, dolphins, manta rays, whale sharks, all the nice kind of stuff for families to see and do.
No sooner had we started filming in the surf that some officials arrived and told us that we couldn't film. The professional-looking equipment was the problem. Beach driving in South Africa is not permitted on any beach unless it's a specifically designated beach, so the wrong vehicle on the wrong beach can be confiscated. You know, for all the bureaucracy one has to put up with coming in and out of these areas, the moment you come, you know, you pass through the gate, show them your forms, you realize why it's necessary. Suddenly now, the bush is absolutely beautiful, pristine, untouched. So it's times like these that I kind of forgive them for this mad bureaucracy. I suppose it's there to protect it, and it's, boy, is it worth protecting. What we're doing now, Sodwana is now behind us and we're taking a back road. Difficult to navigate. It's supposed to be very, very sandy, so we're going to have fun with the trailer and this Hilux. I don't have my own equipment with me here. I've normally used an ARB Easy Deflator, which is quick, easy, simple, accurate. Even when empty, that 2.2 litre Hilux struggles in the sand. While the 3 litre makes the climb without difficulty.
The distinction really between the two is this, that you have the power to just drag you out the top eventually, essentially.
In sand.
Yeah.
Cars with more power.
Yeah.
Work better.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yes.
This here, narrow gap, is the entrance to this vast lake system. You would think it would be much bigger considering the volume of water, but actually only a small portion of it is tidal, and the tide is now turned. With the tide coming in fast, people who have been enjoying themselves on one of the many islands must make their way back to the mainland before they're cut off. Rocktail Bay Beach Camp is well renowned for as a family destination. And I asked them why this was the case. Well, facilities in the camp are very, very nice for children, pool, etc. But there's something else that children particularly love. And we're going to go and find out what that is right now. Snorkeling. Rocktail Bay boasts some of the best snorkeling in all of South Africa. I've always loved to snorkel, combined with photography. For overlanders seeking remote and hard-to-access places, I do not regard South Africa as being high on the list when compared with other African countries. It's comparatively well developed. But for adventure travellers, it surely is one of the best. I lived in South Africa for 42 years, and during that time there were few parts of the country that I didn't visit. This is the third and final in this series as I take you to see some of these places with unseen footage and untold stories. This is cosmos all over the country, particularly in this part between Johannesburg and Durban. As the winter approaches, cosmos blooms. It's actually not an endemic flower. Comes from South America, I understand. But the big ones are girls, and the white ones are boys, and the red ones are undecided. A couple of months before leaving South Africa for good, I returned to one of my favourite places. As I walk in one of the nicest parts of all of South Africa, think about my trip ahead. It's a funny feeling that I'm not coming back.
It's a perfect day for the road.
I might come back to visit.
The blue sky will take us home.
But I'm not coming back to live.
We'll take it easy, we'll take it slow.
This is one of the places I'll miss the most.
It's a good day for the road. And time goes so fast.
Golden Gate National Park, Eastern Free State. Because my in-laws lived here, I spent so much time here. I have such warm feelings about the place that if I think about South Africa, if I had to retire here, this is where I would like to end up. On that same trip, I went into Lesotho to remind myself how nice it is, and to add to a Lesotho Traveller's Guide DVD that was about to be released. Welcome to Lesotho. The DVD you have in your machine right now. The DVD was released in 2013 and was only sold in South Africa. It is no longer available. The trip took us past a marvel of modern engineering, the Kosi Dam. Lesotho sells water to its neighbours, and this is the largest reservoir in the project. There is only one lodge in the area. This is Kosi Lodge. Good name for it, really. The road that heads east from Maseru, the Blue Mountain Pass, the God Help Me Pass, which is the pass right here. Tar roads, you do not need a four-wheel drive to get a really good look at Lesotho. If you have a four-wheel drive, yeah, it's better. You can go further. So I've moved off the road, found a flat spot. It's always a good idea in Lesotho, if you're just going to bush camp, wild camp, is to do it early. Don't wait to the last minute. Don't wait for the sun to go down. Because most of Lesotho is very, very lumpy. To find a flat spot can be quite difficult. Well, it's early morning. We chose a beautiful spot last night to build a fly camp. A little flat area, not too far from the road. We're on the road between Tsabatseka and Maseru. And the pass here has these lovely descriptive names like Blue Mountain Pass, God Help Me Pass, Pass of the Jackals. Beautiful, beautiful country. This is dirt, but most of it is is tar. It's been, again, I know I go on and on about this while I do my TV shows and things. Nostalgic, really, because one of my very first four-wheel drive trips was actually up on this pass, but it was snowing. I was driving a Range Rover, and I remember I had the worst fuel consumption ever. It's never been exceeded since then. It would have been in 1984. 45.5 litres per 100 kilometres in a Range Rover with that old 3.5 V8 petrol engine. I was in low range, second and third the whole day in the snow, trying to keep up with the Mercedes Geländewagen. I wanted to keep up with him because I was really battling to find the road, to see the road ahead. And it was a 24-hour non-stop drive to get home. Lesotho is a safe place to travel in. It really is a lovely place. People are generally very, very friendly. Security's good. You have to look out for the obvious things, you know, pickpocketing, pilfering around a campsite, you know, the obvious things in Africa, but generally it's a safe place to travel. This is published some time ago. Infomap Lesotho map remains one of the very best maps of Lesotho you can get. And I'm going to read, well, not so much read, but just talk about some of the information found on this map about traveling in Lesotho. If you want to read it again, get the map and then read it. Okay, Lesotho has the highest, lowest point of any country on Earth. So traveling here, be prepared for lots and lots of twisty mountain roads, which means in winter, and if it's snowing, it becomes quite dangerous. And you're going to need snow tires. It snows every winter, and sometimes very, very thick snow. The roads are closed to ordinary traffic. In summer, it's the opposite, in that there is so much rainfall that in the valleys, it's sometimes difficult to get across some of the rivers. And almost every summer, some of the bridges are washed away, or if they're not washed away, the water is covering them so high, you have to then, if you're unlucky to encounter one, you have to turn back. So when traveling in Lesotho, carry lots and lots of fuel. We've woken up to a bright, lovely, sunny morning. After yesterday, one of the scariest drives of my entire life, the entire day, in pouring rain on the N2 with maniacs everywhere. It was truly a scary drive. Well, traveling through the country now, the entire country virtually is under a blanket of water. Enormous amounts of rain falling. I've driven most of the morning. Steve's taken over now, driving up north towards Natal. And Steve's now actually hitting the worst of it. Very, very heavy rain, and the morons are on the road. People driving with no headlamps, overtaking on blind bends, solid white lines, in pouring rain, with water washing like rivers across the road. Just amazing on how unbelievably stupid, I can't think of another word, people are. They have no brains. Heading north-northeast, the area we're going to will be of particular interest to historians, both South African and English. We're going to some areas where the Boer War was fought, and we're going to chat to a chap who takes people on guided tours and learn a bit more about it and the place that we're going to. Rorke's Drift is the site of the bloodiest and most famous battle of the Anglo-Zulu War, January 1879.
The Battle of Rorke's Drift took place immediately after the Battle of Sodwana. Most visitors are unaware that these two great battles took place on the same afternoon. And what happened here is simply Herculean. 139 British soldiers, 35 of whom were sick as patients in this very building, held out all night against 4,500 Zulus in a battle that lasted for around 10 hours. It saw the award of 11 Victoria Crosses and 5 Distinguished Conduct Medals, and is immortalised by that grand old classic movie Zulu that launched Michael Caine's career. This man is Lieutenant Gunville Brumhead, who unfortunately was quite deaf and standing in for an officer who'd been injured by the accidental discharge from one of his soldiers. And what is interesting about Brumhead is that the poor man was quite deaf, and he was called Gunny Brumhead, the deaf duffer, which I think is rather unfair. He hailed from Thirlby Hall in Lincolnshire. He was 34 years of age at the time of this battle, lieutenant in rank, and he was in charge of B Company of the 2nd Battalion, 24th Regiment of Foot, who were really a group of kids, average age 23, the bulk of whom had not been in a battle before. And he earned one of the famous 11 Victoria Crosses awarded for this action. The man directly behind me is Lieutenant John Chard. He was brevet captain in rank, awaiting promotion to captain, and he was the senior officer on the night of the fight, a Royal Engineer. But the man who really stands out for me in this entire story and defence is the man kneeling. That's Lieutenant James Langley Dalton, acting commissariat officer, a man unusually became a hero. 46 years of age, retired Sergeant Major from the 85th Regiment, and he was the man who said, if we run, the Zulus are going to overwhelm us and kill us. We are going to stand and fight. And it was really that remarkable man who, in my opinion, led this fight and has never been fully acknowledged for his remarkable part in the successful defence of Rorke's Drift.
Well, that is a familiar sight for me. Last time I was here was 5 years ago. I spent a lot of time with John Rich, the owner. This is Stony Ridge near Wynn in Natal. And John runs the 4x4 Off-Road Academy here. And I've worked with him a lot, doing my recovery and driving DVDs. It was great to see him last night. We arrived after dark, early morning now. Lovely drive yesterday, bright sunshine all day. Of course, fantastic visits to Rorke's Drift. And now, rain threatening again. Let's just hope it stays away, because today we're going to go playing seriously with the Isuzu. Completely blind. I might as well have my eyes closed. Double cab pickups, even single cabs, because of their long wheelbase, they're limited over very steep undulating terrain, and it's a clearance issue, and they all share it. I know that half of the people watching this program will want to shoot me because I'm not wearing my seatbelt. The fact is that with a seatbelt I can't see where I'm going, and the beeping will drive me crazy, so I've turned it off. And generally you should always wear your seatbelt, but then I can't do this, and if I can't do that I can't see a thing. So what's better, wearing a seatbelt and not seeing where I'm going, or wear a seatbelt, not wear a seatbelt, and actually see where I'm going? The vehicle is unfamiliar to me, so I'm going to be very, very careful. I don't want to damage it. Try climb. Let's try climb now. Plan here is to do it the smoothest I possibly I didn't use the diff lock. Thought I would need one. Didn't. Decided to try it, see what it could do without, because a diff lock is kind of cheating. Well, it's not cheating, but you don't know what the vehicle is capable of when the locker is engaged. Without the locker, it's you know, you can test the vehicle properly. Did it well. Did very well. And these 3-litre turbo diesel motors actually so well suited to these pickups, because on the open road they just fly, and in low range slow speed like this they chug beautifully because they get a reasonable amount of displacement, so they produce reasonable power at very, very low RPMs, and they're very, very easy to drive. John and I wanted to test the air jack. And the job was given to me to get the Isuzu good and stuck.
I would like you to go downstream more than if you go for that tuft on the other side. Well, it would be nice to demonstrate the jack, but we'll see if...
See if I can get through there.
Yeah.
It's going...
as it wants to lift itself there, and then shoot it across.
So,
but if you do it well, then we'll have to come back and do it badly.
the intention here is to get the Isuzu well and truly stuck. But my natural instincts kick in, and it's actually my job to try and not get it stuck. There you go. Job not accomplished. So now I'm going to now get it stuck. I'm going to purposely get it stuck. There you go. A bit of full lock steering. That should do it. And I straighten them up again, and the vehicle wants to pull through. This means I'm going to have to get mean and nasty.
Go down more. Drive it.
Good enough. The result of this test is linked above. With a bit more packing of material underneath the wheels, it's time to see if it's worked. Well, I think we bit off just a little bit more than we could chew, but chew it we did, and that was a great and genuine example of how to use an airlift jack to get a car out of a horrible sticky mess. Yes, I know I look wrecked because of a night of bush camping. I come to the end of my expedition. It's been absolutely brilliant. Ending at Stony Ridge, one of my favourite places, and places that I've come to so very, very often, seemed fitting. The Isuzu was exemplary off-road yesterday. Wow! Yeah, it's got clearance issues, as do all of the double cabs, but man, the engine power at low RPM, fantastic. And it seems fitting that I should end here in Stony Ridge. And so, until the next time, thank you for watching.